Joining us now from Washington is Reagan biographer and best-selling author of Last Act, The Final Years and Emerging Legacy of Ronald Reagan. Craig Shirley joining us there. Craig, thanks so much for weighing in your thoughts on Nancy Reagan this morning.
Well, their marriage and their wedding was one of the great stories of the White House and national politics. I would say it rivals the Adams and the Washingtons as far as their love and devotion for each other. They really were best friends. They were soulmates. They were very happy being alone, just the two of them, and they often were at Camp David or at the ranch or in the West Wing of the White House or in a canoe or horseback riding. She was a great balm to him. He was a happier candidate on the road and when he was running for governor and then when he was running for president, and she was happier to be with him. She would often, he'd be on a plane and working on papers and speeches and things, and she'd take a pillow and take a blanket and curl up and lay in his lap. They were Stu Spencer, old political aide, once told me that he was going on a political trip in the 1960s with the Reagans, and Mrs. Reagan took them to the L.A. train station, and the two of them embraced there and said goodbye as the businessmen are coming and going, and the secretaries and business women are coming and going, and the sky cabs are coming and going. The two of them are just embracing as if nobody else in the world existed. And Stu told me, he said he'd never seen such singular devotion as he witnessed that day. And
all the pictures that we see of them really show that. Everything that you just said. Yeah, they were never afraid to demonstrate their affection for each other in public. They'd hold hands all the time. Yeah. They would kiss, they would embrace. They were never ashamed whatsoever to show their affection for each other. She was truly an icon, Dagan.
She was. Just, I think the first word I thought of when I heard about her passing was grace. And
yeah,
Craig,
grace and elegance.
You know, her legacy is inextricably linked with that of the president, her husband, but she also forged ahead and was a real advocate for people and families fighting Alzheimer's. I mean, that is real, will be lasting in terms of her impact on this country as well.
Yes, is that she raised millions. You're absolutely right. She raised millions for Alzheimer's research. Of course, she had other causes during the White House, obviously Just Say No, but also got less attention. But Vietnam POWs returning from Vietnam, she raised money and helped them. But she did raise, and of course he left in his will, he left a big chunk of his estate to the Alzheimer's Association, in addition to the Reagan Presidential Library, and then, of course, personal bequests as well.
Morgan Ortegas.
Good morning, Craig. You know, one of the things that struck me yesterday when I found out, and it felt like a ton of bricks hitting me, but I remembered just the grace and the elegance of not just Nancy Reagan, but also her husband, and I immediately thought, my God, how far we've come from that in this election cycle. And I had a little bit of hope that people would remember Nancy Reagan and Ronald Reagan, and maybe we could change the tone. I'm probably being a bit optimistic there. I'm curious, Craig, do you know what Nancy Reagan felt about this current cycle? I've heard that she thought it was a bit crazy, but do you know any details?
No, I really don't. You know, she did keep up on national politics. I didn't interview her for my last book, but she was extremely helpful in having the library open up sealed documents and sealed files so I could go through. She often had Fox News on in the background, and I wrote that in my book. Is that she worked the phones assiduously. She was always talking to people about politics. She actually, she knew more about politics than most of the people that she was talking to. So she kept up on things.
Yeah, she was very well read.
Yes, she was, and up on current events.
John Bussey?
You know, I just want to pick up a point that Morgan made, which is that I think that it will affect this cycle of politics.
I hope so.
And maybe not for the better. Whatever your politics are, the Reagan era was one of coherence within the Republican Party, for sure. And it was graceful, much more so than what we're seeing today. I would imagine that what this is going to do, Maria, is it's going to cause people to reflect on how belligerent the campaign has been so far. And it will not necessarily bring people together. I think it will aggravate those differences. I think people are going to remember back when the Republican Party had a period of power and coherence. And they're going to look at today and they're going to say, what is this? This is an enormous problem.
I don't don't know.
Thoughts on that?
Well, may I jump in
Craig.
here? I don't know if it'll have. I mean, I hope you're right that it'll have an impact. I don't know if it will. It certainly will for a few days, and we're talking about an earlier era of grace and charm. And but don't forget too is that his campaigns were rough and tumble affairs in '76 and '80. They were titanic struggles between Gerald Ford and Ronald Reagan for the '76 nomination, and then again against George Bush and other candidates for 1980. So I don't want to gloss over too much, you know, the politics that he went through, and then, of course, the 8 years that he was in the White House. You know, they walked into the White House. They walked into Washington. It was like going behind enemy lines, because the Washington culture and the Washington Post and the style section were very, very rough on the Reagans.
And there was the Iran-Contra affair. There were a lot of issues. I mean, a lot of the Reagan legacy is a bit of a myth. It's been created by, you know, the people who were in the White House, and has been very carefully crafted. But it is seen as a period of pretty remarkable coherence within the Republican Party. Wouldn't you agree, Craig?
Yes, I would. I think, you know, he left office in January of 1989 with a 73% approval rating. He actually had a higher approval rating among voters under 30, and he had the Republican Party had a coherent governing philosophy as of January 1989. That's been despoiled over the last several years, and so maybe that will be one of the legacies as well. There's no doubt about it.
You mean because of the differences in terms of how to approach governing, and the differences in terms of really that is it, the approach?
Yes. Well, Reagan was very much infused by the American Revolution. He believed in individualism. He believed in individual dignity and rights and privacy. He believed that power belonged to the state and localities, not with the national government. And he did his best to move power away from Washington.
Really
back to the
good and important points, Craig. Thanks so much. Craig Shirley joining us there. And then